No man should be playing in the WNBA. No man should be competing against women in female sports. We got to stop it. Men should play against men, females should play against females, and transgenders should play against transgenders. Simple. That's not being anti-trans. That's being pro-female.
Stephen A. Smith didn't hold back when the WNBA's latest controversy exploded into the spotlight. What started with a provocative appearance at an Indiana Fever game quickly became a much bigger argument about women's sports, league policy, and where the line should be drawn. But Stephen A. wasn't simply defending one side. He made it clear that he could understand the argument behind the protest while still believing the way it was delivered went too far. And that distinction is exactly where this story gets complicated, because his next point put the WNBA itself under the microscope.
Enes Kanter Freedom was wearing a shirt supposedly in support of women. And here's the scene right here for you to see for yourself. It was a messy situation, to say the least. And it's obviously something that's going to be politicized, because there's a lot of people that have feelings about this. All I have to say is 2 points. Number one is that I told you so. There are people that say, we just want to talk basketball. We just want to play basketball. Whatever. You don't get to decide for constituencies. They do.
The real tension wasn't just about what happened inside the arena. Stephen A. argued that the controversy exposed a much bigger problem. The rules themselves need to be clear. His position was that questions about eligibility in women's professional sports shouldn't be left to vague interpretations or endless arguments online. At the same time, he pushed back against targeting the players, arguing that athletes on the court shouldn't be treated as if they personally created league policy. That distinction became crucial, because suddenly the debate wasn't only about one protest. It was about who should actually be held responsible when a league's rules become controversial. And then another voice entered the conversation, making the debate even louder.
I just think people are running from issues, and I don't think in this business you're supposed to run from issues. And the fact that everybody's running from the big elephant in the room involving the WNBA and the latest with Coach Stephanie White of the Indiana Fever going on a little tirade during a post-game press conference because people were accusing her of not supporting her player after Sophie Cunningham was essentially, knocked upside the damn head by Dejanay Carrington, and she didn't speak up fervently.
That argument became even more complicated once WNBA players reacted to what was happening around them. Natasha Cloud pushed back against the confrontation, and that changed the focus of the entire discussion. From the players' perspective, being pulled into a political demonstration during a game could feel personal, even if the larger message was aimed at league policy. Stephen A. understood that frustration. He argued that if someone has a problem with the WNBA's rules or collective bargaining language, the criticism should be directed toward the people responsible for those decisions. The athletes on the court are there to compete, not defend every policy created above them. That created an unusual situation where Stephen A. could understand the broader concern while still criticizing the person delivering the message. But the controversy was about to move far beyond one game.
With careful consideration and reviewing the current eligibility guidelines, I am officially declaring myself a WNBA prospect. If simply declaring who you are is all that's required, then I meet every single requirement necessary to compete in the WNBA.
So you see what Enes Kanter had to say, right? You see how much of a mess this is becoming, right? And everybody want to act like, oh my goodness, we don't want to hate on trans. We don't want to hate on trans folks. That's not what that's about. Anybody who's hating on them should be ashamed of themselves. The WNBA, the NBA, and everybody else in between is absolutely right when they talk about not violating people's civil rights and liberties, not being hateful, not engaging in hate in any way, shape, form, or fashion, whether verbally, physically, or other.
The debate took another turn when the conversation shifted from the players to the WNBA itself. Stephen A. questioned why the league had allowed its eligibility language to become such a major point of argument, especially when the issue had already been discussed publicly for years. His point was simple. If a rule is going to affect who can compete, it should be written clearly enough that fans, players, and teams understand exactly what it means. That opened the door to a much bigger question about how professional sports leagues handle controversial policies when public pressure starts getting louder. And once politics entered the picture, the WNBA suddenly found itself dealing with a conversation much larger than basketball.
And level of sensitivity that's come associated with the WNBA, and I don't blame them one bit. I want to say that. But here's the reason I don't blame them. Because what Enes Kanter did, although he had every right to do it, and although it's clearly to bring attention to the unfairness of not specifically defining what a woman is in a collective bargaining agreement, and as a result, somebody who is transgender and can wake up and say, I'm a female and I want to participate in the NBA, according to the letter of the language of the law, you can actually get away with it. And that needs to be clarified. Clearly, that's a political.
What made Stephen A.'s reaction especially interesting was that he didn't completely dismiss the person behind the protest. He acknowledged that public figures have the right to express strong opinions, even when those opinions make people uncomfortable. But he drew a line when that message began directly involving players who had little control over the policy being debated. In his view, there was a difference between challenging a league's decisions and confronting athletes during their own game. That distinction became one of the most important parts of his argument, because it showed he wasn't simply choosing one side and attacking the other. But another debate was already waiting.
Put it where the GOATs can get it, because evidently people don't want to do that. The WNBA, and I want to emphasize, I'm not saying it's fair. I'm certainly not saying it's right. And I will speak out against those that are doing this in a second. But it's important that the WNBA wakes up and acknowledges something. There's a lot of people that don't like you. There's a lot of people that don't like you.
The conversation then expanded into the growing relationship between sports and politics. The WNBA has become far more visible, which means every controversial moment can now spread across social media within minutes. Stephen A. pointed out that fans cannot simply be told which topics they are allowed to discuss or care about. Some people come for the basketball, while others become interested because of the cultural debates surrounding the league. That attention can create problems, but it also shows how much influence the WNBA now has. And with more attention comes another unavoidable consequence: more criticism.
Wrong. It was a classless thing for him to do, because it's not. The ladies that are playing don't have anything to do with this. The league does. Its collective bargaining agreement may be the case. The liberal tilt that it has might be a cause or a cause effect to some degree. I get all of that. But the actual ladies that are involved, they have nothing to do with this. And they don't deserve to be agitated the way he clearly was willing to do in attendance at the game. It wasn't just about him standing, but he was just about to step to her. You got no business doing that. You got no business doing that.
That criticism became even more complicated when the discussion turned toward competitive fairness. Stephen A. argued that the question should be discussed seriously rather than reduced to insults or personal attacks. He maintained that protecting transgender people from hatred and discussing eligibility rules in women's sports are two separate conversations. His broader point was that people should be able to debate competitive categories without automatically assuming every person involved is acting out of hostility. At the same time, he believed the conversation needed clear rules instead of endless arguments over interpretations. But then another major name added even more fuel.
You're supposed to make sure that it is clear where your rules stand. Women, how come you didn't write in your language those born female? How come you didn't make that clear? Because if you were born a female, even if you're transitioning to being a female, because you weren't born a female, that would make you ineligible to enter the WNBA. Why didn't you do that? This whole issue has been fomenting and gaining steam and traction for years. It was used in the presidential election. It was used in the midterms before the presidential election. It's gonna be used in the midterms this November. And if the right has their way, it's gonna be brought up again in 2020.
Former NBA player Stephen Jackson brought his own perspective into the discussion, making the disagreement even more intense. His comments focused heavily on the physical differences between men's and women's basketball and his concerns about what those differences mean for professional competition. That gave Stephen A. another opportunity to explain where he stood. Rather than treating the entire controversy as something that should simply disappear, he argued that difficult questions deserve direct answers. But he also kept returning to the same warning. The athletes themselves should not become the targets of a dispute created by league policies and public debate.
Is pointing to is about competition. So for somebody to transition from male to female, and for folks to act like it would be okay for them to participate in the WNBA is ridiculous. And when you have athletes from the WNBA saying that they're looking out for and speaking up on behalf of girls, because it would clearly be an unfair advantage to a trans athlete over people born female, what's the problem? What's the problem? We got to have common sense. And yes, Enes Kanter is going to...
By the end of the discussion, Stephen A. Smith had turned what looked like another WNBA controversy into a much broader conversation about rules, fairness, politics, activism, and the growing spotlight on women's basketball. His position was complicated, but the central message was clear. People can disagree strongly while still recognizing that players deserve respect. The bigger question now is what happens next. As the WNBA continues attracting new fans and enormous attention, controversies like this are unlikely to disappear. If anything, the arguments surrounding the league could become even louder, and the next time the spotlight turns on the WNBA, everyone will be watching to see who speaks up.